welcome to the third season of the Steps to Happiness show on Soulivity TV. I'm your host, Teresa Greco. For those of you that have been following the show, welcome back. It's great to have you with me once again. For those of you that are new to the show, let me tell you a little bit about me and what you can expect from this season of the show. I'm a certified happiness life coach, a 3-time best-selling author, and the editor and senior writer at 2 Canadian magazines from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I'm a Reiki master, public speaker, educator of over 20 years, and an educational technologies consultant. I am also the founder of a personal development company that mentors others about achieving their own personal happiness and fulfillment. I believe the core of who we are, our essential nature, is love, peace, and happiness. I believe we already are happy, but the world leads us away from who we really are and causes us to feel worry, doubt, fear, frustration, angry, and all the unpleasant emotions we feel day to day. So it's important that we become familiar with the very simple practices and principles that can remove the blocks that are preventing us from feeling the love, peace, and happiness that is always there within us to feel. On my show is where we talk about the various steps you can take to arrive at your inner happiness. This season, each half-hour episode will feature one guest, and they will share with you the ways they are tapping into their happiness and how they are helping others to do the same. You'll hear from coaches, writers, motivational speakers, and those who are living their passion and purpose. We will explore the latest physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being practices, and together we'll advise you on the actionable steps you can take towards a happier, more fulfilled, authentic life. So I hope you'll join me here each week on Soulivity TV as we talk about the ways we can nurture and connect with all aspects of ourselves to keep us aligned, centered, at peace, and happy. I'm going to take a short break, but I'm very excited for this first episode and for you to meet my first guest. I'll see you in a bit.
Have you ever asked the question, if I was to be anything, what would I be? Regardless of money, regardless of status, beyond popularity and fame, living your passion, feeling your life has purpose. Soulivity is a space to nurture that which lives in all of us. A place where work can become play, and doing what we love creates the dreams of a lifetime.
Welcome back to the Steps to Happiness show. I'm thrilled to introduce my first guest of the season on the show today. He's an Ivy League educated positive psychology expert, celebrity happiness coach, inspirational speaker, and published author. Robert Mack, hello and welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
And it's such a privilege to be in the presence of another happiness expert. So that's why I was so excited that you could be a part of the show and be my first guest, actually.
Oh, I love it. I love meeting like-minded, sort of like-hearted people.
Mm-hmm.
Not a whole lot of us, actually, in terms of the happiness coaches.
There are?
There aren't a whole lot.
There are?
Not a
No,
whole lot of
no.
happiness in the world there, no.
Yes, I feel like that. Now, Robert, you've written 2 best-selling books, Happiness from the Inside Out, and your latest one entitled Love from the Inside Out, both beautiful titles. I would love it if you could talk more, though, about happiness from the inside out, because that's very much in alignment with the show. So if you could share a little bit more about that book with us, please.
Yeah, so happiness from the inside out really began in my personal journey, really. When I was a kid, I was the unhappiest, most stressed out, anxious, sort of self-loathing, self-hating kid I think I have ever known. And I remember being that way since the age of about 6 or 7. And I always thought I'd grow out of it. You think you'll make friends, maybe I'll have a girlfriend one day, and I'll become a professional basketball player. That was my dream, and maybe I'll make great money and eventually just grow out of my unhappiness. But that didn't happen, at least not right away. Instead, my unhappiness deepened, my depression deepened, and I got to a place where I was seriously suicidal. So, despite having a great corporate job, despite having lots of friends, a beautiful girlfriend, lots of health, a happy family, I just continued to spiral until I was experiencing suicidal ideation. In other words, thinking about suicide dozens and dozens of times a day. And so I decided I was going to do some research. I couldn't take it any longer. And I looked up all the ways that I could kill myself. And I decided I was going to slash or slit my wrist. So I went to the kitchen, I got a steak knife, and I dug it into my wrist. And what happened next was so unpredictable and inexplicable that it's hard to put words to it. But for no good reason, without anything in my external conditions or circumstances changing. Meaning I had a really fantastic life, but I still felt very empty and depressed on the inside. Despite none of that changing, I felt this limitless love and inexpressible peace and sort of ineffable joy, the kind of which I had never experienced before. And so it was really strange to me. You don't expect that when you dig a knife in your wrist. But that moment, I decided I was going to postpone the suicide for like 5 or 10 minutes. And now it's really laughable almost. And then it felt like a really tall, ambitious order. Like I didn't think I could last that long. But I did last that long. And in that time, I began doing a different kind of research. I looked up what happiness is and unhappiness is and depression is. And I discovered a whole lot of really interesting research and data out there in the world through the course of many years. So it's been a few decades since then. But all of that experience is sort of what began sort of as a journey in me discovering and looking for my own happiness. Eventually became the book Happiness from the Inside Out.
Mm. And in that, I hear, some of my own similarity, that on the outside, my life looked perfect as well. So fulfilling career, beautiful, healthy family, our own home, cars in the driveway, vacations a year, lots of beautiful material things. So if my life checked off all the boxes that society, family, culture, religion told me that I needed to have a happy life, how is it that I've arrived at this point in my life, which for me was approaching 40? That was that turning point from that in my life that caused me to take a step back and start to reevaluate and ask myself some important questions about the way that I was living, and if I was happy and feeling fulfilled in my life, and I wasn't, and and suffering in that for a long time, saying I don't understand and not feeling like I could talk to anybody about it. That's also so much about my message, is that many of us suffer in silence for a very long time, feeling like we don't want to be judged, feeling like nobody will understand, feeling like nobody will love us if we express how we're feeling. And I felt like that too. I didn't tell anybody for a very long time how I was feeling, because I didn't want to be judged. I didn't want to say, Teresa, what are you talking about? You have like all of these things in your life. How could you possibly be unhappy? And so, and I heard some of that, similarity in your own life, that you were living on the outside a very beautiful life, but on the inside feeling brutally unhappy.
You just nailed it. I mean, you read my mind. Also, you lost me at 40 because I think you need to check your birth certificate. It's impossible. Impossible. Yeah, that was the story for me too. I mean, precisely, that was precisely it. I did everything I thought I needed to do or should do to be happy. And mostly for me, that meant being successful relationships, successful job, successful financial conditions, successful friends. And I was as miserable as I'd ever been. And so I started at that point making some very different decisions. I didn't know a whole lot, but I knew that what I was doing wasn't working and that my best thinking had gotten me to this place of being so deeply depressed. So I don't know if you remember, but back in grade school, we occasionally had something called opposite day, where you did everything the opposite. And so I sort of applied that to my life. It was very elementary, sort of
Mm.
primitive way of making changes in my life. But I said, hey, I don't love this corporate job. I got to find a way out of it. This relationship is really unhappy, although she's incredible and she's beautiful and wonderful and brilliant, but it wasn't right, I think, for either of us. So I should probably find or make a different decision there. And I should change the city that I live in. I was living in Philadelphia, a great city, but cold, and wasn't really an ideal place for me to be. Moved to Miami. So I started making all these decisions. So at first, it was a very sort of rough and raw and rugged kind of approach to happiness. And as I continued along that journey, I discovered there were so many other changes that I could make that went a lot deeper than that and that were a lot more
Mm.
sustainable and lasting and meaningful and abiding in terms of the results I could get with respect to happiness.
And so in your book, you have discussed 8 tried and true principles for realizing unconditional happiness. And I think that that's really important, especially in during, us coming out of the pandemic, that a lot of people felt that because they weren't able to go certain places and do certain things, and the things that, they thought made them happy, now I can't participate in that. So how can I be happy? Now, recognizing that happiness goes with you wherever you are, and that I was equally happy sitting on my back porch looking at what may have been could look like the boring backyard, but I actually discovered lots of beautiful miracles in my backyard, and a heaven on earth by really being more so in the moment and present to my life, instead of trying to maybe, a lot of us distracting ourselves with thinking that we have to go to fancy locations and spending lots of money to, dine at certain restaurants, or flying, to certain, whatever those distractions might be, that they are just that, and that recognizing that we don't need those things in order to tap into the happiness that we really are on the inside. And so I would love if we could talk about what some of these principles are, so that people can understand that happiness is not found on the outside, but it's actually deeper, as you said.
Preach that all day long. I mean, you're absolutely right about that. That's just spot on. I would say happiness is presence and unhappiness is distraction, right? Happiness is being in the moment. It's living in the moment, not necessarily for the moment. It's a little different, but living in the moment, living in presence. And unhappiness is always in distraction or absence. And so we always think that when we're unhappy, there's something or somebody missing from our lives. But the something or somebody missing is our own presence. We already are, believe it or not,
Mm.
steeped in happiness. In fact, I would strongly argue that happiness is not just within us, but it is us, right? So when your mind is cool, calm, collected,
Mhm.
composed, and quiet, right? When you're tapped in, tuned in, turned on to the present moment, and you're not distracted by what you don't have or what anybody else does have or what you should have or what you used to have, but you're just doing what you can to stay with whomever is in front of you and whatever is in front of you. And deeper than that, when you're not making up stories about how much better or worse life is or could be or was, when you're just in the moment, you find that you're happy already. Right? In the beginning, when you're practicing presence,
Mhm.
it doesn't feel like a whole lot. It's like entering a dark room. And at first, you're sure there's nothing inside there in that dark room. But as you stay in the dark room for a period of time, your eyes start to adjust and you realize there's more light in there. And then you might find out the room is full of all kinds of treasures. And that's the experience of happiness to a large extent. So, happiness is presence, unhappiness is distraction. When you feel like something is lacking or absent in your life, it's not that someone or something else is lacking or absent, that you are lacking or absent with respect to presence.
All beautiful. I agree. I agree with all of what you just said, and that for me, happiness is more than a state of mind, right? Even positive psychology talks very much about a state of mind, or you having personal characteristics within you, as well as circumstances outside of you, that if they line up in such a way, then you can be happy. But I also go a little bit further by believing that happiness is a state of being, meaning that we are, as you said, we are love, peace, and happiness, that it is our original nature. It is the true essence of who we are. It is the core of who we are. And when you know that it's more than just, thinking positive things about your life. And I mean, that's a component of it, right? Our mental self is a component of our physical, emotional, and spiritual self. And so, yes, that also plays a part of it, but it's not the only part of us, that there's the other components that we also need to connect with and nurture, and to understand that when you are happy already and you're not feeling it, then that then allows you to maybe pose some questions about, why is that? Are there blocks that are preventing me from feeling the happiness that I feel? Or are you making time to connect with the happiness that's already inside you to feel? That you don't need to do anything, buy anything, earn anything, achieve anything, that you can remove all of that, that it's not about arriving, or it's as happiness as a destination or any of that, that it is inside you at any moment to feel.
Facts right there. That's right. It's exactly right. One way I say it, just to reflect back your found wisdom there and insights, you know, um, success doesn't lead to happiness. And we have decades of empirical data to support that and back that up. So if you're unsure, check out any of the books out there in the world on positive psychology. So success doesn't lead to happiness. Interestingly enough, happiness does lead to success. So happy people experience better, more successful lives with less time, energy, and effort. So in other words, happy people live longer lives than their unhappy counterparts by about 6 to 7 years on
Mhm.
average. Happy people make more money, about $600,000 to $700,000 on average over the course of their entire lifetime, on average, than their unhappy peers. Happy people get married earlier, stay married longer, and are happier in all relationships, whether they're married or not. It's not about being married. It's not
Mhm.
even about relationships, it's about love and happiness. Happiness also makes you more attractive. So happy people are rated as more attractive than unhappy people. And it's not the other way around. A lot of people think, well, if you're attractive, you're happier. We know that's not the case. Happiness is causal in that respect, right? We also know that happiness improves your job performance, improves your health, all of these things, right? Happiness actually makes you more charitable and kind and generous. So happy people are kinder people, more altruistic and selfless people. So
Mhm.
happiness also leads to success. But there's a third part to this, the one that you're getting at too, which is that happiness is the greatest success, meaning it's the reason that we want
Mhm.
success. All success ever aims for is simply happiness. And so if you have
Mhm.
happiness, you have the true prize and the cake already, and everything else is a consolation prize or icing on that cake, right? So in other words, you got to find a way to get happy without everything and everybody you want. And then you're happy, which is the point of it all. But then when you're happy, you get everything and everybody else that you want with all the time, energy, and effort that you're accustomed to, right? But you're also, spot on when you say, look, initially in our happiness journey, it starts as like happiness is what you do or what you have. Okay, that's fair. It's low hanging fruit in the beginning, and you want to clean that up if you can. But then you graduate and you say, well, happiness isn't just a lifestyle status, and it's not just a state of the body, it's not just a relationship status, and it's not just a state of the mind. That you can find yourself thinking the most positive thoughts, which of course are better than negative thoughts, but still be anxious or unhappy or upset or
Mhm.
overwhelmed. Underneath all of that thinking, even the best of thinking, even the worst of thinking, is a state of being, your innate, true nature, your natural state of being that is always tapped into and turned on, that is always perfectly blissful. In fact, it's bliss itself. And so, if you can get those thoughts and those crazy stories out of the way, you'll quickly begin to
Mhm.
discover that you're rich already. You're steeped in wealth and success already, the greatest kind, the kind that not only feels great, but also leads to other more traditional forms of wealth and success
Mhm.
and riches.
Mhm. Yes, yes, that we must go within before we can go without. So that our external environment is just always a mirror of our internal one. So when we get everything, like our ducks in a row on the inside, that it's like literally miraculously, all of a sudden the ducks on the outside that look like everything was chaotic and I don't know, like how are we going to get it all under control? All of a sudden it's like, what? how come you're all in alignment like this? And that was just
Yes.
because you went inside first, got into an alignment with who you really are, got grounded and centered. And then all of a sudden, it is like miraculously, everything seems to fall into place on the outside.
Beautifully stated. I mean, really eloquent. And you're right. And there's so many ways to say what you just said. I just love the twist and the beautiful finesse you put on that because it's true. You want to go within before you go without. Also, if you don't go within, you'll find yourself going without, right? But
Mm.
then the other twist, right?
Nice,
Yes.
nice play,
Yes.
nice play
Yes.
there. Yes.
Yes. And then there's one more twist, at least, on that, which is, if you go within, you don't have to worry about going without. And by that, I mean, when
Mm,
you go inside, you don't have to worry about going outside. But also, when you go inside, you don't have to worry about going or having or experiencing lack or absence in the way that you used to. And it doesn't
mhm,
mean you won't have periods of time
mhm,
when you feel like you're in lack or that you're in somehow, missing something in your life. But you can always return to this touchstone of who and what you truly are that is perfect peace and find within that perfect peace everything else you're looking for. And there is something about the
yeah,
universe that just, needing nothing attracts everything. And so when you discover that everything you're looking for is really
mhm,
inside, everything else seems to
yes.
arrive in divine timing.
Yes, yes. If only we people would remind themselves of that everything that we're searching for outside of ourselves already exists within us. And that for me, I needed to connect with the love, peace, and happiness within myself. But also when I began to first love myself, but that then led me to honoring and respecting myself in other areas of my life that then, as I said, kind of got all my ducks in a row on the outside. But it all started with self-love. And so that's interesting. I mean, it is interesting, but also not, in the sense that your second book is entitled that, right? That I believe that self-love is the key to everything, the key to our happiness, absolutely. But again, because it's a part of our essential nature, our original nature, that we are love, peace, and happiness, and that they all kind of go together. And I've heard you, talk already, referring to peace. But what about the love? What about the love piece?
What about the love, Therese? What about the love? I love that question. You're absolutely right. I think of love as your happiness shared. So, like a rain cloud, when you're full of so much joy and peace and self-love that you can't contain it. You just selfishly filled yourself up with so much peace, love, and happiness and self-love, or notice that you're already full of so much peace, self-love, and happiness. You can't help but shower that peace, love, and happiness down upon the earth on all living creatures and beings, indiscriminately, unconditionally, without an expectation of reciprocity, simply to unburden yourself, simply to relieve yourself of this peace, love, and joy that you can't possibly contain or carry around any longer, right? And you share it without any strings attached, right? Without any quid pro quo. It's not a business affair. It's not a negotiation. It's simply a sharing. It's a overflow of the bliss that you've been carrying inside all
Mhm.
day long, right? Another way of saying that is not just that love is your happiness shared, is love is your self-love shared. So love
Mhm.
and happiness are really synonyms. They look like two different phenomena or two different energies,
Mhm.
but they're one phenomenon or one energy looked at through two different lenses, seen from two different perspectives. When you're really happy and you're all by yourself, we might call it self-love or we might call it happiness. When you're happy, not just in your aloneness, but in your togetherness, we call that love, or I call that love. So love is your self-love shared. And you're right, there's really just one kind of love, although we talk about it in different ways. And that is self-love, right? No self-love, no other love. No love for yourself. Very difficult to not only give love to others, but also to receive love from others. If you don't really truly love yourself, you'll doubt the other person's love for you. And you'll think they're manipulating you, they're up to
Mhm.
something, they can't
Mhm.
possibly love you. How can they love you? You know yourself better than them. You know that you're not smart or beautiful or talented or worthwhile. So they have to be up to something. And so before long, that becomes a self-fulfilling
Mhm.
prophecy. You drive them away, with your inability to receive love and not just give love as well. So
Yes.
absolutely right. One final thing I'll say, and I'll stop here, is that the self, the true self, is thoughtless, wordless, faceless, formless, infinite, eternal self that we might call spirit, we might
Mhm.
call awareness or
Mhm.
consciousness. It is love. So self love is actually a
Mhm.
redundant term. The love is the self, and the self is love, and we are all the one self. So we are all one love.
Mhm. Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you for all of that. Also, all so well said. And so I would love if you could share some of the principles in your book. I know we've probably been touching them on already kind of inadvertently, but if you would you mind to talk about what some of them are? And then if people want to learn more about them, they can obviously grab a hold of your book.
Sure. So I'd say lazy intelligence is probably the one I'd want to share first, which is, look, we all try too hard to be successful, try too hard to be happy. We try too hard to get love and give love. And there's an easier, faster, more enjoyable way to experience success and happiness and peace and love. And so it's all about lazy intelligence. And so it's asking yourself, what's the laziest, smartest way to get what I want? In this case, it's happiness and success and love. Because we know that if you have happiness, it leads to success and love. And so for me, that means not routing my happiness through other people, things, places, or activities. It's going straight and directly to the source for it. And there are lots of ways to do that, and I have no judgment about how you do that. Meditation and prayer and contemplative
Mhm.
prayer and affirmations and japa and retreats. All these things are fantastic. So whatever works for you. Um, One of my favorite practices is something I call a micro meditation. I also occasionally call it practice in the presence. But a micro meditation is simply one breath that you enjoy for its own sake while pretending it's the last breath or last moment you have on this earth or on this planet. So hopefully you and I will both
Mhm.
live 100 years in these beautiful human costumes, and that'd be wonderful. But we also might only live another 5 minutes or 5 seconds. We genuinely don't know. And so with that recognition in mind, we want to take one deep, conscious breath in through the nose and out through the mouth, with the only goal and intention being to let all our thoughts go and to simply enjoy this one breath and juice it for as much joy as humanly possible. So the idea is if you can do that as frequently and consistently as you can remember, you'll discover that in about 22 to 66 days, you'll start to do it automatically and effortlessly. But it really ties back to the presence, it ties back to self love. And it's the laziest,
Mhm.
smartest, one of the laziest, smartest of ways to access this infinite well or pool of happiness that always exists, not only within you, but as you.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. Love that. I'm going to and I believe that too, that if every day we could think of if this was our last day on earth, how would I want to live it? And there's sometimes that, I get down on myself about like, oh, I went on the scale in the morning and I was a couple pounds up and oh, I'm feeling bloated. My pants were tight. And now it's like, oh, you're not feeling good in your skin. And it's like, it's ruining my day. And then I have to stop and say, wow, if I was about to get into an accident right now, and this was my last day, and now I'm on the other side, and I'm like, is that how you were living like your last moments on earth, complaining that you were like a couple pounds up on the scale? Like, no. So if we can, remind ourselves at a couple, different points during the day to say that if this was our last moment, is what I'm worrying about, is what I'm feeling down, is what I'm like critiquing myself or sabotaging or any of these things that are creating that feeling of unhappiness in that moment. But it's that's the other thing that I wanted to also point out in what you said is the understanding that happiness is more than just a feeling, right? That it, as you said, it is us. And so although our emotional self lends itself to us to that feeling of happiness, it even goes beyond that, right? That the feeling of happiness, when we think of it as an emotion, is fleeting. That when things outside of us are going right, oh yeah, I'm happy, I'm feeling so good. And then when all of a sudden now, we're sick or, there's been a death or whatever it is, now I'm not happy and it's gone. No, it's not gone. It's just that we're not maybe, going in deep enough to really to connect with that true essence of who we are, that we as and I that's why I loved what you said, that we are happiness already, because I say in exactly the same words. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And you said it so it was so poignant what you shared there. I just wanted to highlight and reflect back some of the wisdom there to unpack because to make sure people heard it all, which is like, um, there's never a lack of love. There's only a lack of awareness of the infinite love and the
Mhm.
ever-present love that always exists within you and around you. And there's never a lack of happiness. There's just a lack of awareness of the happiness that you're already steeped in. And there's never a lack of
Yeah.
abundance. You're always infinitely, eternally steeped in abundance. And it's just a lack of awareness. And so, to that point, happiness and love, too, is not a state of mood. You're right. It's again a state of
Mhm.
being. So that even within, above, beyond, below, between, even your unhappiest or seemingly unlovable moments, you are steeped in the peace, happiness, and love that you're essentially chasing or pursuing or looking for in something else, including a few fewer pounds. Right? So if you could sort of go right for that, if you could go for feeling, but we'll call it feeling better for now. If you could just go for feeling better. And another way of saying that is feeling in to the peaceful aliveness that already exists within your body. So it's kind of like watching a movie. We're all watching a movie in a movie theater, big 40-foot screen. We get caught up in all the images on the screen. We get carried away in emotion, excited, sad. The reality of the movie is not the screen and the or not the images across the screen, but the screen itself. So behind this movie, the screen behind it is sort of unconditional in its all loving, embracing nature, right? And it's unshakable and immovable in its peace. And it's an alive kind of peace. Well, that screen is within you. Screen essentially is you. And so at any point in time, underneath, beyond, between, above and below, even your depression, even your stress and anxiety, even your self loathing and self hating is perfect self love, perfect peace, and perfect happiness. It doesn't always feel like that. It doesn't always feel like that. And so that's the temptation is don't think that it's not there just because you don't feel it. But the more time you spend
Mhm.
aware of your true self, which is thoughtless and wordless, it's just awareness itself, the more you'll find that the dimmer switch on that infinite peace, love, and joy seems to be turned up higher and higher and higher until you do feel it more consistently and palpably and viscerally in your day to day life. So, no question about it.
Mhm.
But don't think that
Mhm.
it's mostly or only a mood because you will quickly find yourself confused and chasing the wrong.
Mhm. Yes, the awareness of the truth of who we are at any moment is so important to remind ourselves of that. So that little micro meditation moment can remind us if there is I know, and now we're running out of time, but I could talk to you about this for forever. Is there something another like little strategy that can also bring us back to ourselves at any moment as well?
Yeah, so I'm going to share something for those folks because I remember in my journey, different things resonate with different people, and I'm a firm believer in telling better feeling stories based in truth. So sometimes going to this place of perfect peace where there are no thoughts and words for the joy of it alone can feel like a really difficult and tall task. Instead, what's also useful in either conjunction or instead of practice of the presence or micro meditation is just telling a better feeling story based in truth about everything and everybody in your life, starting with yourself. So instead of betting thoughts and conversations with yourself and others based only on whether or not it's true, it's a trap. Lots of things are true, but focusing on it won't make you feel better and it won't make you do better. If instead you can vet thoughts and conversations with yourself and with others based on whether it was true and supportive and constructive to you feeling what you want to feel or achieving what you want to achieve, that would also get you there. So, in other words, let's say it's raining outside. Now, one story is that it's a bad day. That's a story that's not very supportive or constructive or helpful. There's another story which is, gosh, I love the sunshine so much and I love rainbows so much. And these days when it rains can be tough. And they remind me how much I appreciate the sunny, beautiful, clear sky days. I love that so much. And I'm looking forward to those days so much. So it's still a truthful, accurate, honest story, but it's a better feeling, more supportive, more constructive story that helps you not only feel better, but in feeling better, it will help you do better. Because we know when you feel better, life goes better. You're a more creative thinker and problem solver. You attract situations and people and opportunities that you otherwise wouldn't. And so this is the magic and the miracle of happiness from the inside out and love from the inside out.
Yes. And just to tag on to that, which I'm sure is also one of your principles, is the gratitude. in all of that, right? To say, but that like yesterday it was raining here as I was walking into the gym, and my first was like, oh no, my hair. But then I was like, oh, but I love it. Those moments that I've been in the rain, and I love the smell in the air right now. And then it's like, who cares about my hair is going to be? I'm like, oh, I actually love the feeling of the little sprinkles of the raindrops on my skin. And I'm like, And then it was just like the whole thing at first was like, oh no. But then it was like, oh no, like this is actually great. And then as you said, I was like, I know. And I'm so lucky that we have these days of rain here, but then it doesn't rain all the time here, that we have, this beautiful mix of sunshine and rain. And like I was, recently in Italy, and they get no rain there. And in turn, and in California too, right? There's those times that you don't get no, and then there's fires all the time, and I'm like, oh no, like this rain is actually fine, and we're so blessed to have this rain. So it's like so weird that if you start to just stop and change your point of view, change your perspective, coming to a place of gratitude and understanding that there is a blessing in everything, but we have to look for it and be more conscious of it. And it changes our mood immediately.
It does. I mean, gratitude makes you a magnet for miracles of all kinds, both
Mhm,
subjective on the
mhm,
inside and objective on the outside. Okay. Um, the challenge that most of us have, and I know I had this challenge because everything I'm talking about today, I was a poster boy for the opposite of, right? I was a person who wasn't grateful or tried very
mhm,
hard to be grateful, but struggled. So a couple things I'll say, um, first and foremost, it doesn't matter how valid you are in feeling what you're feeling. There's nothing wrong with you feeling the way you feel. It's unhappy, it's stressed, anxious. In fact, that's the first step is acknowledging it and accepting that's where you are. Nothing wrong with that. No shame in that. Um, and
mhm,
you can be as valid in feeling what you feel as anyone else is. But to continue to feed those feelings by not being
mhm,
grateful, by
mhm,
focusing on the worst of things or the worst within yourself, will not only make you feel worse, it will make you do worse. Okay, so it doesn't matter how valid you are, you're still messing up your future and your present by focusing on
mhm,
what's not going well in your life or within yourself. Okay? That's very important. The second thing is with gratitude, to your point, start with a low hanging fruit. I remember in the beginning, I was keeping a gratitude journal and I was driving myself nuts. I was trying to be grateful for these big things that I just couldn't be grateful for. It's like I should be grateful for running water and clean air and
mhm.
clean water and a refrigerator, all these things I couldn't. But what I could very easily be grateful for was like beautiful women. I had no problem with being grateful for that, or
Yeah.
really wonderful music, or like, great car, whatever it
Mhm,
was. Okay. So sometimes it felt very superficial. And I would judge myself and then move away from those things. But I realized that it's all to be appreciated, it's all to be enjoyed, it's all to be embraced. Start where you are. Whatever it is that you feel love for, or interest in, or curiosity about, or gratitude for, it's okay. Start there. And then in time, I promise, you'll begin to experience this snowball effect and it will build momentum. And then before long, everywhere you look, you'll find something you love, and that's a huge key
mhm,
with the self love part
mhm.
too. Don't try to love seemingly unlovable characteristics about yourself right away. Start with the
Yeah.
really easy, low hanging fruit. For me, it was just like, I'm trying to love myself. That's all I had in my self love journal for the first couple weeks over and over again. But then eventually, as I practiced that, I got really good at that. And then I looked back and I started seeing other
Mhm.
things I love because it becomes contagious.
Yes, yes, absolutely. It's the same thing with affirmations, right? Some people are like, "Well, they don't really work," but it's if you're creating an affirmation that feels very far away from how you feel right now, like to say, "I am beautiful," but you're not feeling that. I had a guest on the show that said, "I started with the little things about myself that I thought were beautiful, like my eyes." And she had like beautiful blue or green eyes. And so she just started with that. And she's like, oh, and I really love my nose. And I really love like how my hair feels. And so it was like, that it was such a big stretch to go to, and that's why I think affirmations, if you're not really feeling into it and really believing it, they feel like they don't work. But I think it's like, how we use them, in the same thing, that low hanging fruit analogy, we could use it for, I feel like, oh yeah, I could talk about that in this way, in this way, in this way, that it ties into like so many things in a way that we could approach a lot of different things. Now, Robert, just before we leave today and you tell everybody about how they can find out more about you and get your books and connect with you after the show, I have this dying question that I've been wanting to ask since you said it at the very beginning of our interview today, was that moment when you were about to cut your wrist and you felt this very warm and loving presence around you that stopped you in that instant. What do you now know and believe that was?
So that has taken me 20 years to properly understand, integrate, and weave into my life. At the time, I just called it divine intervention. Now, I had a real challenged and challenging relationship with whatever it was that I called God. At that point in time, I was raised sort of fire and brimstone Christian, and I had lots of challenges and really frustrations around that. So I'd gone away from that for a while. But in that moment, the only thing I could really call it was divine intervention. Now, after many more years of work and study and living, I've discovered that it was just me getting a taste or glimpse of that thoughtless, wordless, faceless, formless, infinite, eternal, non physical energy you might call spirit or God, source, life intelligence, that we all ultimately are, and that we all are ultimately one with. It was like finally, for once in my day in my life, the clouds parted, lightning struck, and the space that opened up was the presence of God or life or love or happiness, which are all really synonyms, right? That's what happened. I just got out of the way for a moment. And strangely enough, it was in contemplating my death that brought me to a deeper felt experience of life, like life with a capital L. So, yeah, that's the way I understand it now.
I'm so thankful that you were able to experience that in that moment, that it was, as you said so beautifully, this part of who and what you really are, and that we're all connected to. And that I'm so grateful that you were able to feel that
Right?
in that
So,
moment, because the true essence of who we are, the infinite and eternal part of us that is in this physical shell, that is going through all of these trials and tribulations, that makes life on earth feel like it's so hard, especially now when earth feels like it's really at this terrible time of crisis right now, is that you were able, amazingly enough, you were able to feel that part of yourself in that moment that allowed you to pull yourself out, like mentally out of that space. So thank you so much for sharing that. And it's like this entire interview, I'm like, I need to know, what do you feel? And I felt, I know the same thing as you did, but I'm like, I was waiting for you to say it. And I'm so thankful that that's what it is. It's that the God self in all of us, and whether you want to call it God or universe or spirit or, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. But it is real, and it is a part of us, and that we don't always connect to it, or we think it's weird and woo woo, and we create other words like gut instinct and intuition to almost like try to avoid it. But it is a real part of us, and we need to start talking about it and acknowledging it, and not disguising it.
oof, you just absolutely crushed that. You have etched an indelible mark on my heart, my soul. Truly, Teresa, I appreciate you so much for what you shared there, the way you shared it. Um, and I received that fully. I'm an empath, so if you start tearing up, I'm gonna just be nothing but a puddle. So I cannot tell you first of all how much I appreciate that. Um, you're absolutely right about that. You couldn't have spoken any truer words. You know, it's really the only real part of us, meaning it's the part that's infinite, eternal, and isn't fleeting. Okay. So what you shared there is the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And the more time we practice feeling into that, the more we come to see and feel it as the truth. But I want to just acknowledge you for allowing and holding space for that to come through in a way that's authentic and organic and honest, and to also just do nothing but reflect back light and love and wisdom to me and to all of us. So thank you so much. I feel so honored to be in conversation with you, to be connected with you, to know you, and for the work you do. I mean, it's the work that you do. It's these kinds of conversations with people like you that ultimately saved my life.
Thank you. Thank you. And I feel exactly the same way about you, that I feel so honored and blessed to be with you and in your presence, and to been able to hear your wisdom and have you share the wisdom with our viewers, and have it go into the ether so that it can reach and hear whichever, whoever it's supposed to fall upon, and whoever's heart is supposed to be open to our message today. So I am also very, very grateful for you.
Oh, I appreciate it. You know how we do. That's right. That's right.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate it.
I'd like to leave you with the thought for the day. Are you waiting for the people around you to change so that you can be happy? Are you waiting for circumstances outside yourself to be different so that you can feel happy? Are you searching for that perfect partner or that got to have item so that you can be happy? Do you think that you'll feel happier once you achieve that promotion at work or that goal you've been working towards? I'm here to get you to reflect on what your present definition of happiness is and whether you believe it's an inside job. We are conditioned to believe that happiness exists outside of us, in our possessions, positions, titles, degrees, relationships, and experiences. However, when you realize that happiness is your essential nature, it's who you really are, then you can give up the search for happiness outside of you. You now know that you don't need to achieve, earn, find, wait for, purchase, or pursue anything to be happy. Yes, you might feel temporary pleasure when you get that promotion at work. You find that love relationship, you go on that vacation, you get that sports car. But you'll realize that once that feeling of pleasure wears off, you're left feeling unhappy and looking for the next thing to make you happy again. That's because those are examples are talking about pleasure and not happiness. True inner happiness is unwavering and is always there to tap into. And if you're not feeling happy, then there could be blocks that are preventing you from feeling the happiness at your core. With my guests, we will look at the blocks while also emphasizing the importance of making time to connect with the happiness within you. The Steps to Happiness show is all about sharing the ways that we can nurture all aspects of ourselves, our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual self, so that we can come home to the love, peace, and happiness we are at our core, to live the happy life we came here to live. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to being here with you each week on the Steps to Happiness show with Teresa Greco.
connect with Teresa Greco after the show for coaching, workshops, and speaking engagements, you can visit her website at teresagreco.ca or by email at stepstotruehappiness@gmail.com or follow her on Instagram at Teresa Greco_steps to happiness or on Facebook at Steps to True Happiness with Teresa Greco.